Hello aspirants, looking at editorials in question bank for 7th November 2016. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper is looking for a humane solution. So this is regarding India-Sri Lanka relation about the fisheries issue specifically. So recently a joint meeting was held and the decisions which have come out through this meeting are: first, a joint working group on fisheries would be set up which would meet every 3 months. So any fishermen related issue can be resolved in this platform. Second is Minister of Fisheries from both the sides would meet every 6 months. Third is a hotline will be established between the coast guards on both the sides. So if there is any issue related to fishermen, direct communication becomes possible. So there are many instances of Indian fishermen crossing over the international maritime boundary and entering into Sri Lankan waters. The reason being that the catch on the Sri Lankan side is much better. So such instances have happened earlier. Also, the Sri Lankan government presently has said there will be no violence and loss of lives of fishermen. So the government has also assured that. So these are the decisions which have come out. Also, we have discussed earlier about the Kachativu Island, which is an island which has been ceded by the Indian side to Sri Lanka in 1974 during the Indira Gandhi government. So Tamil Nadu state still claims that Kachativu Island, which is actually an uninhabited island, belongs to India. So originally it did belong to India before independence. So if this island becomes a part of India, actually the resource which is of significance is that then the international maritime boundary would shift. So that would result in more access to the economic resources, the fisheries for the Indian fishermen. So the fishermen who are protesting against Indian fishermen using Sri Lankan waters are these fishermen in Jaffna. And Jaffna itself had been under the strife civil war because of the presence of LTTE, Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. So afterwards, later when the Sri Lankan government has ended LTTE, so the civil war has now ended. So they are recuperating, they are gathering themselves together. So they are much weaker economically than the Indian fishermen, the Tamil fishermen. And of course, these are also Tamilians. So these are Sri Lankan Tamils who are already oppressed in their own country also because of the Sinhala majority in Sri Lanka. So these are the issues here. The editorial also says that Indian fishermen also have to realize that these are their brethren and economically weaker too. Plus, the main issue which Sri Lankan fishermen raise is the use of trawlers and bottom trawling by the Indian fishermen. So what are trawlers? Trawlers are boats which use a huge net which is spread over the water behind the boat, and the fisheries are caught through this net. So bottom trawling actually means that these nets are used at a depth in the ocean water, so at the bottom. So this results in, of course, a much better catch, but it depletes the economic resources which would be harming it in the long term. So fisheries population may reduce in the long term, and also it is resulting in environmental degradation and affecting the fragile oceanic environment. So biodiversity. So these are the aspects here which are of consideration, and even the Indian side agrees that it has to stop bottom trawling. So what it demands is that should be a phase out. So it's calling for a 3-year gradual phase out of bottom trawling. But the Sri Lankan side wants immediate action on this aspect. It should be immediately stalled. Also, the Indian side gave a suggestion that they should be allowed to use these trawlers for 85 days in a year. So till the time frame, then eventually it can be phased out. But the Sri Lankan fishermen completely rejected this proposal. They want outright end to bottom trawling. So these are the issues. Another sensitive issue is about the fishermen. The Indian fishermen are caught when they trespass this boundary line, maritime boundary, and enter into Sri Lankan waters. They are caught by the coast guards on Sri Lankan side, and then they are arrested. And later, of course, they are released also over a period of time, but the trawlers of these fishermen who are released are not set free. So trawlers are still in the possession on the Sri Lankan side. So this affects the livelihood of Indian fishermen too. So that is another sensitive issue between the two sides. So let's see, we are trying to find out a solution. These points which have been put forth are also looking for solutions to the fishermen issue between India and Sri Lanka. Then the next editorial is back from the brink in Lebanon. So Lebanon is a country in Asia. We have discussed this issue in news as well. There's an editorial here now. It's a neighbor of Syria. This is Israel down here. Now Lebanon has a confessional system in place. So this is a system which is a mix of politics and religion. So in Lebanon, the religious mixture is that Shia comprise around 41% of the population, Sunnis are around 27%, and Maronite, which is followers of Maronite church, which are Christians, are 16%. So the setup is such that the president of Lebanon would be a Maronite Christian, the Prime Minister of Lebanon would be a Sunni, and the Speaker of the Parliament would be a Shia. So this has been a long-standing arrangement in Lebanon. So this is called the confessional system. So presently Lebanon faced a 2.5-year stalemate when the government could not be brought in effect. So that was as a result of not coming to a consensus between these three major sects. So presently the Michael Aoun, who is a Maronite Christian, has been named as the Lebanon president. So he has been elected by the parliament. So that is because of the support in the parliament which he got from the Sunni leader Saad Hariri. So in return, now Michael Aoun has named Saad Hariri as the Prime Minister of Lebanon, and this has been supported by even the Speaker of the Parliament, who is a Shia. Now the major sect here, clout here, is of Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is an organization representing the Shias in Lebanon, and it has a military arm too. And the Hezbollah militia is much more larger than the army of Lebanon as well. So you can understand the political clout of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is also supporting the Syrian government. The neighboring Syrian Bashar al-Assad government is supported by Hezbollah because they are Shia. The Islamic State, which is against the Shia, Bashar al-Assad as well as Hezbollah, is IS, which is a Sunni organization, terrorist organization of course. So these are the political arrangements internationally too, or in the neighboring region. So Saudi Arabia, which is again a Sunni country, supports Sunnis. So it supports Saad Hariri. It supports forces fighting against Bashar al-Assad, which is also the Western powers. Western powers are fighting against Bashar al-Assad. So all this is the problem, international alignments problem, which is also seen in Lebanon as well. Also, Saad Hariri's father, Rafiq Hariri, is said to have been assassinated by Hezbollah. So all these create more complications, but presently they have all come together and they have decided to leave aside their differences to bring governance in the country. So it has also been suffering because of the Syrian civil war, which is resulting in even Islamic State and terrorist attacks taking place even in Lebanon. Also, a huge Syrian refugee crisis is also faced by Lebanon. So there have been people coming into Lebanon since 2011. So these are also the problems which it faces, which call for an effective government to be in place, which has now become possible after a 2.5-year stalemate. Next, we look at the question bank. The question which we have framed is, the central government is conferred with the power to reprimand the media for violating broadcasting norms and upholding reasonable restrictions on media coverage. However, this needs to be balanced with the freedom of the media and press as an essential ingredient of a healthy democracy. Discuss highlighting judicial rulings on the matter. So for this question, we have used three articles which have come up in the Hindu. One is the editorial on this issue which came up. This is with respect to NDTV India, the Hindi channel which has been banned by the central government. Now even the ban has been revoked. That is the most latest news. Also, there was one article yesterday on the perspective page on 7th November in the Hindu, and plus on 8th November again there has been an article on the lead page on this same issue. So all three articles have been merged together, and the best we can gist of all that, what is relevant, has been picked up and put forth. So this is regarding the NDTV India, the Hindi television channel, which has been banned for a day by the central government, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, for airing sensitive data or on the terrorist attacks which took place on the Pathankot Air Base in Jan 2016. So it says that this sensitive information could have compromised the safety and security of the military personnel as well as the civilians there. So it has invoked the power which is conferred on the central government under Cable Television Network Amendment Rules of 2015, which puts a blanket ban on coverage of anti-terrorist operations by the media. So there is no live coverage of anti-terrorist operations by security forces allowed anymore. Also, it restricts media coverage to periodic briefing by designated officers till such an operation concludes. So it can only air the information which is brought out briefed by the designated officers. Of course, NDTV India channel also claims whether it is mandatory that government will appoint a designated officer who will give briefing to the media, and if that such officer is not there, or not, he is a person who is not designated and has given some information to the media, then what is the responsibility? How should the media deal with that information? So all these are the questions which are raised, but that's how the things have unfolded now, that these provisions have been used. What the channel says and what is there as editorials and perspectives put forth is that there should be an independent body which should decide whether the NDTV India channel should be reprimanded or not. So there are judicial rulings on this matter too. Even there is a National Broadcasting Authority which has been set up. So even that can have been used for reprimanding or giving punishment to the NDTV India channel. So this, as recent as 2015, rule been used by the government without giving clear viewpoint, because NDTV India also says that it was not just their channel but also other channels aired the same content. Then why is it only NDTV India has been singled out for punishment? So this is a question which it raises too. So of course it is anti-BJP, so it calls itself anti-establishment channel. That is why the government is specifically targeting. So it's called political vendetta, means personal grudges being brought out by the government against a channel. So these are the aspects because of which this has become controversial. So presently you must be knowing that a stay has been put on this ban. Also the NDTV India channel has gone ahead and approached the Supreme Court on the matter. So that is also another thing, that the ban has been put and later it has the, of course, the doors are open, it can go to the judiciary and ask for justice, but then that delays the whole process. And they say that this ban has been put forth to ensure self-censoring, to put the media on a back foot. So that is what the government wants to do. So in the interest of national security, all the voices are muzzled. So these are the allegations made against the government too. So of course, the Cable Television Network Regulation Act of 1995 provides for regulation of transmissions done on the media by the government, but then there are reasonable restrictions imposed in the interest of sovereignty, integrity and security of India, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency and morality. So these are similar terms which are used under Article 19, also 19(2), which is freedom of speech. So fundamental right under the Constitution. Judiciary has many a times interpreted it that freedom of speech also includes freedom of media, freedom of speech of the media. So these aspects are also of significance, that if reasonable restrictions are imposed, they have to be justified. So the right platform then is the judiciary or any other independent body. But presently the government only formed an interministerial committee and that gave this punishment to NDTV channel. So that is the aspect covered. Then need for an independent ruling. As I said, News Broadcasting Standards Authority has been set up by News Broadcasters Association. It is also headed by a former Supreme Court judge. So it gives it a judicial inclination too. So adjudication by this authority could have been much better than using the central government powers. So that is a suggestion made. Also, the judicial rulings on media reporting, what judiciary has said over the years on rights of media, it says that it is constitutionally guaranteed under 19(1)(a), which is right to freedom of speech. So that one aspect is there. Reasonable restrictions, of course, have to be there, as we discussed above too. The scope of reasonable restrictions will be examined in such a way, a judicial ruling has said earlier, that the anticipated danger should not be remote, conjectural or far-fetched. Means far-fetched, ऐसा होता तो ऐसे हो जाता, like those kind of far-fetched ideas which may not directly or surely be possible, but in a rare case scenario or something like that. So it should not be a far-fetched idea. And another is reasonable restrictions must not be arbitrary and excessive. So these are the Supreme Court rulings on reasonable restrictions on the media's freedom too. Then another ruling has said that insidious form of censorship which impairs the core value contained in Article 19(1)(a). 19(1)(a) is right to freedom of speech and has a chilling effect on the freedom of speech and expression is not allowed. So no authority can indulge in such activities, including the government. So as an American association has also said, this is a quote by Justice Jackson, which is an American judge. He said, thought control is a copyright of totalitarianism. So if some government wants to control the thought processes, so that is what is totalitarianism, which is dictatorship. It is not the function of our government to keep the citizen from falling into error. It is the function of the citizens to keep the government from falling into error. So that is one statement being made here. So that is what it shows, that to uphold democracy is also extremely important. For a healthy democracy, rights of media have to be upheld. Of course, national security is of significance, but in that process the freedom of the media cannot be muzzled unreasonably. So if there are reasonable restrictions imposed, it fines. If they are unreasonable and not justified, then it cannot be upheld, and such a debate is also important, as it is said, for a healthy democracy. So they say that let the media remain a watchdog, leave the interpretation of national interest to our courts, and don't allow the executive, the government, to become a bloodhound, thirsty for blood of its opponents. So this is about the article 2. You can download the PDF file for news, editorial and question bank every day from the website, the link for which is provided in the description. Thank you.